I have no idea how to pronounce the name of this Citizen automatic watch that is similar in style to the Tissot PRX. I'll refer to this watch as the Baldy, which I named after YouTube's favorite watch seller, Teddy Baldazar, who acted as the catalyst for the explosion of YouTube interest in the Baldy. The Baldy is obviously an over-polished scratch magnet. It doesn't seem like the type of watch that would garner very much attention, especially given that it's not currently in the Citizen US catalog. Is there something special or unique about the Baldy that has compelled the biggest watch personalities on YouTube to review it? Or are they just blindly following each other's lead? Let's find out. I purchased the Baldy for $249 from a Belgium eBay dealer with free shipping. It arrived at my testing lab in Vermont very quickly. The box says Citizen Watch Europe. The Baldy's diameter is 40.5 millimeters. The Baldy's width is 40 millimeters. Its lug to lug or length is 45 millimeters. Its case is only 12 millimeters, which is pretty thin for an automatic. On paper, these dimensions strongly suggest that the Baldy is very reasonably sized and should fit really nicely on my average sized wrist, which is about 7 inches, but it doesn't. The Baldy doesn't feel as though it's cradled to my wrist like, say, my Seiko SKX clone, which is a similar sized watch. And the reason for this is that the end links of the Baldy's bracelet are attached to the case fairly high up. Notice how my SKX clone's bracelet is attached considerably lower to the case. My XKX clone feels like it's firmly and comfortably attached to my wrist. I barely recognize that I'm wearing the watch. I don't get this feeling with the Baldy. While the Baldy's fit on my wrist is more than adequate, it feels slightly unstable, as if it's not saddled to my wrist, which in fact it's not. I give the Baldy a B minus for comfort. Part of what makes the Baldy as comfortable as it is its impressive light weight of only 138 grams. Here's the case back. There's gold in them hills. Aesthetically, I like the Baldy's case. What I find disappointing about it, beyond its not very ergonomic design, is that the sides of the case weren't brushed. This would have complemented the polished areas and been consistent with the mix of brushing and polishing on the bracelet. I'm pretty sure Citizen knew it would have been better to brush the sides of the Baldy's case, but chose not to do so for reasons of expediency. I give the case a C. The case has a mostly recessed 4 o'clock crown. It's not a screw-down crown. You need to dig your fingernail under it to pull it out. According to Citizen's information paper on the Baldy's movement, the Miyota caliber 8210 movement, which I use Google Translate to translate from the original Dutch into English, the movement has 3 positions. The first is for manual winding, which you can barely operate because the stem doesn't come out far enough for your fingers to be unobstructed by the case. The second and third positions of the crown for setting the date and the time are accessible. The Baldy's second hand stops when setting the time. I'm going to deduct a point for the hand winding position of the movement not being very accessible. However, I personally don't think it's a big deal. You can just give the Baldy a quick shake and you're good to go. Also, personally, I don't think it's that big a deal to dig a fingernail under the crown to pop it out. You can easily manipulate the crown in its second and third positions. I really like the compactness of the crown and like knowing that it's well protected. The Baldy's crown is something that's probably going to come down to personal taste. I like it and I'm giving it an A minus. The crystal is sapphire, it'll never scratch. The crystal lies slightly above the fixed bezel. I'm not aware of it having any anti-reflective coating. I haven't noticed any issues with glare, which is common in watches like the Baldy that have sunray dials. I give the crystal an A. I'm the type of guy who doesn't like loud sunray dials. The Baldy sunray dial, while nicely done, is slightly too ostentatious for my personal taste. The Baldy, with its high amount of polish, is a watch that draws attention to itself. So the slightly loud dial background fits in with the overall flamboyant aesthetic of the watch. I like the markers. I like the date magnifier. The needle-like second hand is way too thin and easily gets lost in the dial background in low light. The hour and minute hands seem too thin as well. There's a fairly vast expanse of dial area in the Baldy relative to the hands, and the thin hands seem better suited for a smaller watch, or at least a watch that has a lighter, clearer dial background. I give the dial a B. The bracelet supports wrists up to 8 3/8 inches in width. The bracelet is really nice, it's very flexible, and has a lot of links. I like how the big gaps in the links provide a good amount of airflow to your wrist. The bracelet starts at 22 millimeters in width and has a decent amount of taper of 4 millimeters. The bracelet links are connected with cotter pins, which are embedded tightly. I give the bracelet an A. The Baldy's clasp is 19.5 millimeters in width. The swing arm is flimsy, but other than that, it's a really good clasp. There's no clearance at the edges of the clasp. This is good because it prevents the clasp from snagging on things. The clasp is compact and doesn't have sharp edges. I give the clasp a B. The Baldy has only 50 meters of water resistance. Sorry, you will not be able to swim with the Baldy. The Baldy uses an 8000 series Miyota movement, which is notorious for having loud rotors. The Timex Marlin that I reviewed had an 8000 series rotor that could be heard from across the room. You can hear the Baldy's rotor, but it's the quietest 8000 series movement I've ever handled. World famous German watch reviewer and 2020 Hottie Award nominee Jenny Ellie conducted a cutting edge scientific experiment to test the Baldy's loudness by saying if shaking her Baldy would wake up her cat. With generous funding from the University of Advanced Horology in Switzerland, I conducted an experiment to see if the Baldy could wake up not only a sleeping cat, but a sleeping human. I used my cat and my roommate, Rob, as my test subjects. This was a double-blind experiment using a superimposed analysis of variance to isolate the independent variable.
I have to be very quiet. Rob and my cat, Paula, are asleep in Rob's room. I am now going to conduct the experiment.
What are you doing, Bill? Oh, you woke up the kitty too. If you ever do that again, Bill, I will bash your head in.
Bob gets very cranky when he wakes up. The Baldy's noise doesn't bother me, but I'm not bothered by watch noises. If you are bothered by watch noises, you might want to not buy the Baldy. My Baldy was very accurate. It was running 4 seconds a day fast in the vertical position and 2 seconds a day slow in the horizontal position. Keep in mind that I didn't fully charge the Baldy before testing its accuracy due to the difficulty of hand winding the Baldy. I just gave it a few hard shakes. The Baldy's lume wasn't visible after an hour. I don't regard lume as important in casual watches like the Baldy. According to the Citizen Watch Europe warranty information that my Baldy came with, if the Baldy is purchased in Germany, the Netherlands, Austria, or Sweden, Citizen offers a 2-year warranty. Otherwise, Citizen offers a 1-year warranty, and I suspect you'll have to ship the watch overseas to a Citizen Watch Europe official repair center. The Baldy looks pretty, but it's not going to stay pretty for long. It'll quickly become scratched and scuffed due to its large areas of polish. I give the Baldy an overall grade of B+. If you don't mind a scratch magnet, I think the Baldy is a pretty good value. If I had my way, I'd brush the entire Baldy. I usually don't like large areas of polish on watches. This is, however, my personal taste. There's no law that says that you can't go crazy with polish on a watch. You should buy whatever type of watch that makes you happy. Do I think the Baldy is getting vastly more attention than it deserves? Absolutely. Please like, please subscribe.